What's up guys, it's me Jeremy. So a short while back Riot Meddler confirmed something that we've already kind of been assuming for the past, few months or so, and that's that Urgot's full visual and gameplay update is pretty much going to be released in 2017. So Riot have definitely attempted to rework Urgot a few times in the past, but each major iteration has actually kind of just failed and been scrapped in the early stages, since it's actually been pretty hard to nail down the gameplay direction that they wanted to go with Urgot's fantasy as a character. It seems like those issues have finally been ironed out though, so we definitely wanted to talk about where he's at right now and what changes he's likely to receive in his future design. And so if you guys enjoyed the video, definitely hit that like button, and if you don't enjoy the video, feel free to hit that dislike button too, and let's get started. So as far as the timeline goes, Urgot's probably not going to show up in the first half of the year. Right now, Riot definitely has some other reworks that they want to get done first, which are of course Galio and Warwick. Although Urgot does have his own fair share of issues, a big part of how Riot decides on which visual gameplay updates to put priority on is actually player sentiment, which they kind of measure using surveys and stuff like that across regions that show which champions players want to see reworked the most. Alongside that, they also look at narrative quality, design quality, and model quality, all areas where Urgot has pretty much been showing his age pretty significantly. Now the reason Galio and Warwick are being prioritized instead of Urgot is actually because of a new factor that Riot have been looking at for their reworks, which is the potential of the archetype. So we've talked about this a little bit before. It's really just all about how well executed a specific fantasy archetype is. Warwick's definitely the best example of this. His kit isn't nearly as bad as some unhealthy champions like Urgot or someone else, but it's not that exciting. It's kind of boring, especially when you consider that he's meant to be this sort of like super badass werewolf kind of guy. When you pick up a fantasy archetype like werewolf, you're committed to develop an awesome gameplay experience that players can resonate with, and right now Warwick just doesn't deliver on that archetype whatsoever. They both have so much potential room for improvement because of their epic archetypes that Riot wants to fix them up as soon as possible. Urgot might have the same issues as Galio and Warwick in terms of actual gameplay, and he's probably viewed as more unhealthy for the game, to be honest, but he's not taking up the design space for this big awesome archetype that has a lot of potential behind it. And that means that the priority has gone to those two reworks first, although it's extremely likely, pretty much confirmed, that Urgot will receive his rework in Season 7, it's just going to be later on in the year. But since the Warwick rework is coming out very soon, and Riot's design teams usually like to spend about 6 months on actual reworks, it's likely that the team that's reworking Warwick is going to pick up the Urgot rework after that, and then the Urgot rework gets released sometime around like August, September, or November. Pretty much every aspect of Urgot does have room for improvement though. His gameplay is really outdated, and it doesn't even really match his background. And his personality is pretty unexplored in general, which means that every part of his design could definitely use some work, including his lore and appearance of course. It's pretty likely that they'll stick with the core identity as like this sort of dark and messed up kind of character. After all, he is this big, bulky, monstrous looking dude that should be intimidating everyone in his own little way. The real question though is, how is his gameplay going to change? So right now, despite being this ugly crab looking monster, his gameplay is actually that of like this high-tech weapons platform that terrorizes people from a distance. And right now that's honestly kind of the core problem with his design. It's not that Riot doesn't like having this almost Lovecraftian zombie horror type dude for a champion, but Urgot looks like a character that should be chasing you down with his creepy mechanical legs and scaring the shit out of you, but instead his gameplay is all about poking you from a long distance and playing this sort of like artillery style that's really long range and very safe and kitey almost, which means that they either need to change his appearance to suit the artillery gameplay, or they need to change his gameplay to suit that horrifying type of character. So from what Riot have said, it seems like it's going to be his gameplay that's actually changing the most, not his actual appearance or theme. And Urgot actually has some seriously cool abilities in his kit right now, to be honest, his ultimate actually being one of them. But the thing is, his abilities don't really have all that much synergy with each other, and they definitely don't really suit his design. They're kind of conflicting almost. Hyperkinetic Position Reverser is a badass ability, don't get me wrong. It's actually pretty awesome if you think about it on paper. Being able to lock down a target and then switch places with them would just be such an insanely cool ability for a tank that maybe wants to set up his team to kill one target while surviving with his high defenses, but For a marksman style character, it honestly just doesn't really make sense to have in the kit. It means putting Urgot into a middle of a fight, even though for the most part his kit, the rest of his kit at least, wants him to attack from a long range and kite people and shielding himself to make up for the fact that he doesn't have an escape. On top of that, the rest of his abilities aren't necessarily that exciting to use, even if they kinda do what they're supposed to. Riot gives the example of Urgot's passive, so the damage reduction debuff that he applies on his auto attacks. The passive works, it makes it easier for him to survive in a 1v1, it definitely does what it's intended to do, which is make him a better duelist, but it's just not an exciting ability to use whatsoever. And the same kind of goes for his play pattern in general. There's not really a lot to fight with Urgot outside of, avoiding his corrosive charge so that his acid hunter missiles can't lock onto you. Considering that Urgot's this massive, terrifying abomination, playing against him should be a lot more exciting, or at least a lot more interesting than simply just dodging his E. His appearance is probably going to change as well, to be honest, but the rework is definitely going to be focusing on tying his champion fantasy together with his gameplay, which means that he's going to lose a lot of his current existing identities actually, as well as getting some new mechanics that are going to make him different from other champions in the game. Even if he becomes more of an original concept rather than one of the archetypes that Riot wants to deliver, Urgot's gameplay should definitely still deliver on his fantasy as this bad guy from Noxus who was enhanced in Zon, and his gameplay should be held up to Riot's current game design standards. So like other visual gameplay updates, you'll probably be able to treat him as if he's essentially almost a brand new champion. And an interesting point here is whether or not Riot are going to decide to keep him as a marksman or maybe branch him out into something different entirely. Maybe they decide to make him a juggernaut in the bot lane, kind of like they did with Mordekaiser, or, it's really going to depend on which aspects of Urgot's kit Riot actually wants to hold on to and which ones they want to change, and as for that, we don't entirely know just yet. It's plausible that they could keep the Acid Hunter mechanic and keep him as an artillery marksman, but it seems likely that he'll become a champion more focused on fighting in a little bit closer quarters. This could also fix up the issue with his ultimate as well. It is a really cool ability, but to be honest, his ultimate is kind of just on the wrong champion right now. Now that doesn't necessarily mean he'll get a different ultimate though, but Riot Meddler has offered some context here about the Urgot changes and talking about balancing him and stuff, and Riot Meddler mentioned specifically that Riot doesn't really view Urgot as a marksman overall, and they actually only made that small fear change to his ultimate because his playstyle has a ton of AD carry elements to it in the first place. The problem was more that Urgot had a lot of counterplay issues, which is why he got such big nerfs, many years ago that knocked him out of being viable to play at the time for such a long time. Although adding the fear as a form of crowd control to help AD carry Urgot survive after using his ultimate was a pretty solid move in terms of making him not suck so much before the rework, I guess. It turns out that it's also actually pretty solid from a thematic perspective, since it kind of merges the high-tech Zon stuff with the creepy undead theme, and overall it actually kind of worked out quite nicely. And Riot might end up pushing Urgot as a bruiser that can use this technology to maybe quickly catch up for people with the distance. And Riot might end up pushing Urgot as a bruiser champion that can use his technology to quickly catch up with people from a distance, or maybe they'll keep him as a marksman and just focus on revamping his ultimate, but either way, something about his kit is going to need to change drastically. And Riot Meddler also hinted a lot more about sort of the changes that we could potentially expect in a future Urgot rework. So on the topic of Urgot's ultimate, he said that it's a decent skill, it's just not on the right character. And from that, it really does make me believe that Urgot is going to get a new ultimate, and it's honestly probable that he maybe retains some sort of high range style, maybe not an artillery AD carry kind of style, but some sort of ranged bruiser or something like that, potentially. We'll have to see exactly, but I would say it's extremely likely that he does get a new ultimate based on all the stuff that Riot Meddler have said in the past. He's mentioned that the ultimate still feels rather out of place in his kit, and he's also mentioned that whenever they do an Urgot rework, one of their main goals is going to be to give him a kit with less conflicting abilities on it. And overall, it does seem like his ultimate's probably going to change for the most part, I gotta say, and everything about his gameplay as well might change altogether. There's a lot of problems with Urgot's kit in general right now. He's kind of boring to play, there's not necessarily that much variance from game to game, there's also not that much counterplay, to be honest, outside of just dodging his E. And the best way to fix those issues is probably going to be to just add more complexity to his kit, since right now he's actually pretty dependent on landing an E and then following up with his Q spam, and he's just so dependent on that one ability. And if they add different abilities that interact with each other a lot better and give him different ways to interact or combo his opponents, he'll not only be less boring to play, but he'll also still have plenty of additional ways to be countered or outplayed by the enemy team. And that's definitely super important for Riot and one of their modern design goals these days for champions. So it makes sense that they'll probably add some fresh, interesting mechanics that should make his gameplay a lot more unique and especially varied in terms of how it performs. And whatever Riot decides to do with Urgot, there's definitely a ton of potential in the thematic space of him being basically like a technological zombie almost. So we're expecting a rework that's going to be pretty similar to the level of Scion, something that gives him a true identity, making him feel as horrifying as he should be, and making sure his gameplay matches up to his theme to boot. Either way though, that just about wraps up all of the new information about Urgot's upcoming rework that we know about so far. We're super excited to hear that he's going to be releasing in Season 7, so it'll be really interesting to see what Riot ends up doing with his overall design, and once they release some more info on his rework, we'll definitely revisit the topic and talk about the potential for the future. Definitely let us know in the comment section below what you think Riot should do with Urgot's gameplay or perhaps his character design. Looks like that's going to be it from me. If you guys enjoyed the video, drop a like, subscribe if you want. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.